Exciting. Did take me away from pulling up some stuff that I had in support of my notes. I got all these notes of really current stuff that happened.
Yeah.
I just can't wait to run by you. But I wanted to at least have some little clips here and there. And in our upfront part, I had this part about this a smart guide to better sleep. But I haven't looked at it in over a month. Do you have anything that you want to roll with?
I do, actually. Please do. Okay, that sounds great. Well, welcome to the show, everybody. It's good to be here. And, I've been thinking about just prices at the supermarket. I know, it's just crazy that's going on right now. And I can't even believe how this is impacting everybody, but I'm trying to pull up something right now. I thought, I wonder if there's any alternatives. I wonder if there's any way that we can save money when we go to the store, because it just seems like everything has gone up. Yeah. And as I'm taking a look at some of these stats that are out there, just, gasoline is up 51%. This is just this year. Electricity, 32%. Airfare, 23%.
Car rentals. Oh my God, car rentals.
Rent on everything. Just rent, 22%. Eggs are going through the roof right now, 47%. And this is from a couple of weeks ago. They just keep on going up. Listen to this. Car insurance is up 54%.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
Same here. The insurance thing is going crazy. So I thought, well, the place that I'm getting lit up like most frequently is when I go to the grocery store.
Sure.
So what can we do about that? And I went to this article. It's called Food Prices Rise for These 10 Items. We'll go over a couple of them. Yeah. Here are alternatives to buy instead. And these chefs are pointing this out, and they're saying eggs, butter and margarine, lettuce, flour, canned fruits and vegetables, salad dressing, roasted coffee, processed meats, breakfast cereal, and milk. All of these have gone through the roof. So I just said eggs. So the latest is it's gone up. It's 59.9% that it's gone up. And they're saying that there's really no real good substitute for eggs, especially you want some scrambled eggs. There's not going to be a whole lot of good substitutes for that.
And I want to say,
go ahead.
I just want to add, coffee keeps going up. It's all-time highs. I've never seen before. And I can't live without my coffee. So
I can't either. In fact, that was one of the reasons I was late today, is that my coffee wasn't made yet. So that I cannot function without that. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't make the coffee.
Did you know that coffee is I think the world's, but certainly the country's most used nootropic? And a nootropic, I started taking a nootropic supplement called L, as in if I don't tell you it's the letter L, you're going to think I'm speaking Spanish. L-theanine and L-theanine. And I'm taking this nootropic. Now let's back up. What's a nootropic? A nootropic is something that is supposed to stimulate your cognitive thinking, grease the wheels of your brain, and make you a little smarter, a little more alert. And caffeine is the number one used nootropic in the country. So L-theanine works with caffeine. So that's why I decided to try this one. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. Okay. Well, coffee. Well, we're on eggs right now, and it's interesting. The cost of this has gone up to about 60%. There's several factors. I didn't know this, that including fuel costs and inflation have contributed to the rising egg prices. So that's what they're saying. And also, some 58 million birds were infected with the avian flu last year, which hindered egg supplies. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
So it says eggs are really easy to substitute in baking, but not so much in scrambled eggs.
Right.
This person suggests using applesauce, bananas, or additional oil in place of eggs for baking.
I could tell you that's the way to go. I made one cake in my life about 25 years ago, and I heard the thing about, so I just got the cake mix off the shelf, and I heard the thing, like I wanted to try to do a healthier version than normal. So instead of the regular oil that they prescribed, I used olive oil and applesauce.
Oh,
It was so good. It was unbelievable. And I didn't
really?
realize I used twice as much as I should have because I substituted with the olive oil, the other oil. Then
Yeah.
I put applesauce in on top of that. It was so moist. It was unbelievable. It was very, very good.
That's really interesting. And I have to say, Barry, you're a very good chef in the
I
kitchen.
am not a chef.
Well,
I'm
okay.
an okay cook. Yeah, I'm
You
pretty
can
good cook.
cook. All right.
I would say Lisa's chef status. Yeah.
Okay. I would say that about Anne Marie too. I was trying to elevate you a little. Okay, you're a cook.
I don't
but
deserve it.
you're a pretty darn good cook. I mean,
Thank
seriously,
you.
I lived
I'm
with
pretty
you,
Mhm.
and you're very creative in the kitchen. Actually,
I always
And
try something new. Yeah.
that's exactly right. So it didn't surprise me you had a remedy for this. Here's another option for baking is to use flax egg, according to
I've never heard of that.
according to this chef, a registered dietitian who provides services. She says use 1 tablespoon of flaxseed with 3 tablespoons of water, which is the equivalent of 1 egg. You let it sit for 5 minutes to create a gel, which is also equivalent to 1 egg. And a similar method can be used with 1 tablespoon of chai seeds and 2.5 tablespoons of water. Huh.
I would have never thought that in a million years.
Neither would I.
Who came up with that?
Well, these chefs did that wrote this article, and they're saying that this works. I mean, I don't know. I'm not as experimental in the kitchen at all, but I wonder if this would work.
This reminds me of yesterday. One of my dog walking friends at the park, he just came back from Africa.
Mhm.
And he was telling me the world's best coffee over there is developed by, they feed this certain kind of like big bird. He couldn't remember what it was. They feed them the coffee beans, and when they poop them out, best coffee in the world.
Oh, excuse me.
Dude, that's what I said. How many animals did they attempt this with? Like, no, that's not the one. Who thought of this?
Kind of a caramely flavor, and this one's kind of peanutty. Okay.
Who thought of that?
Who was going around testing these things? This is I was taking a big sip of coffee. You said that.
That's so funny.
Okay, let's move on to butter and margarine. Apparently, butter and margarine.
Who's using
have
margarine?
gone up. I don't know, but
It's horrible for you.
It is. Don't use it. But
Yeah, we were told to use it for all those years instead of butter.
don't go to butter. Butter will kill you. Now
Now
margarine will kill you. Yeah. You hate way
Butter
too much
all the way.
margarine.
Yeah.
This has gone up 35.3%. Substitutes, it's oils. So Russia's invasion of Ukraine distributed the supply chain for ingredients used in margarine, while farmers thinned their dairy herds to reduce costs during COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, there's less milk available now for the butter production. There's always something, right?
Yeah, right.
That's it. The war in Ukraine is that's
Right.
the margarine, I guess, which we don't eat, but still we're dealing with COVID. So here's the substitute: other frozen or fresh greens. Much of the nation's lettuce comes. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Back. Let's see. It's an oil substitute. So oil is a natural substitute for butter in many applications, such as baking and sautéing. You just mentioned it yourself. A little bit goes a long way,
So
and you
good.
can use oil to make the butter you have last longer. So you can mix the two. And this chef, and I don't say their names because I can't pronounce them, but she whips her butter with some vegetable oil to increase the volume. So there you go. There's another one. Lettuce is another one. Go ahead.
I told you about a couple of weeks ago that a thing I like to do is put a couple small baked potatoes into a covered glass dish and bake them in a microwave for about 3 minutes. Let them sit for a few minutes. They continue to cook and soften up. And if they are covered in a glass bowl with a covering, they'll stay moist, very moist. So now when I take them out and they're ready to go, I cut them up really good and put olive oil on there and garlic salt. It's delicious, man. And the olive oil tastes like butter.
Yeah, olive oil is amazing. I
It's
mean,
buttery.
and it's
Yeah.
good for you. And I mean,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
some people that just drink olive oil just because it's so
I
good for
pretty
you. But
much could. I
yeah,
love it. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, what do you got there?
Lettuce is another one. It's gone up 24%, and the substitute is other frozen or fresh greens. This is kind of interesting. Much of the nation's lettuce comes from Salinas Valley in California, but crops there have been battling a virus for years now. What?
Another virus.
Okay, which has decimated the harvest. Romaine, iceberg, red leaf, and green leaf lettuces are among the varieties that have been affected. Fortunately, there are other options available for your salads. Baby spinach, arugula, and other leafy greens are great alternatives to lettuce.
Well, I will attest that I pretty much only use romaine because it's a very healthy alternative to iceberg, which is iceberg's nutrition values like right up there with water. Fine, it's not going to hurt you, but it also doesn't have anything. Romaine still has the crisp factor that if you get it, it's the only reason that I go to Whole Foods anymore. I've come to hate Whole Foods, but man, they got the best romaine lettuce. It's very crispy. And so
I like romaine lettuce a lot.
And it's very healthy.
Very crispy. It's got that fresh kind of to it.
But arugula, totally different animal. It's is not crispy as such, but it has this peppery taste to it. Like salads, I freaking love arugula in my salads for sure.
How about that? This is good. I had no idea about this virus happening in Salinas Valley, but my goodness, this is right. Like who wrote this article?
Everything, right?
I have to everything I read. I'm like, okay, what's the story behind that?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, flour is up, and flour is in everything. It's just amazing. It's up 23.4%, and the substitutes are oats and reduced consumption. What? Okay.
Well, we all should because it's damn near poison these days.
It is, but I mean, it's in all of our baking goods. Here's Ukraine again. Ukraine's the major producer of the world's wheat supply, and flour prices have been on the rise ever since Russia's invasion of the country. That's unwelcome news for both professional and hobby bakers, but it isn't easy to replace flour since most substitutes are more expensive. Though the suggestion is blending oats into the flour as an affordable alternative.
That actually sounds good.
That is interesting.
That sounds good, yeah.
The better way to save money might be to cut back on baking at home. That said, the chefs are pointing out that even with higher flour prices, it's probably cheaper to make baked goods yourself rather than purchase them from the store.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our lovely FDA, Food and Drug Administration, has allowed the food industry to poison us. And now, do you remember in school learning about how farmers rotate crops? So so that
to keep the soil
fertile.
Right.
Yeah. And well, now because of the fertilizers, which can yield more and faster crops, they do monocropping. And they are dependent on this fertilizer now. And this is why all of a sudden everybody has a so-called gluten allergy to our flour.
Oh,
and our flour so crappy. So there's something of a movement to try to, there's so few farmers out there. There's one in Ohio that I know of that still does their wheat the old fashioned way. And so you want to get that, make your bread and all that.
Wow.
I'm try to do this
interesting.
Real briefly. A lot of these problems could be on the road to being solved if we did what we were calling our 050 communities. And this is something that Lisa and I have just kept this dream alive, keep talking about, like making these big and luxurious, not luxurious in the way that we think of, really nice, high quality townhomes, let's call them. And we're thinking like in the Asheville area. And so that they're made to be affordable. It's the concept of like Lisa's mom and her retirement community. They're so close together that they all keep an eye on each other. It's as close as you can get to assisted living without being in assisted living. That's the point. Yes. Now, the other thing is going back to this concept of this 050 retirement community is that we would grow a lot of sustainable crops right there on the premise.
Right on.
Amongst us, all amongst us in this very beautiful way. So they look beautiful. We tend to them ourselves, and we cook them like we would want to have, if possible, our own small restaurant here. The entire concept is you think retirement community today, you're thinking of boomers who want to go to their golf course and their Long John Silvers and Longhorns, all this big business stuff. This would be anti-big business. It would be to get us off the grid as much as possible. Ideally, it would be located by 1 or 2 farms, like within a 10 to 20 mile distance, so we could get farm fresh food instead of going and putting a little pressure on the food industry, the 4 big food distributors that create a monopoly, and with the lack of oversight by the FDA, hence the problems that we have with all the crappy food we are being given. It's very hard not to eat poison when you're buying food from the store that's in a box.
That's for sure, man. I as you're talking here, let me share. I got something I want to put on the screen, but can you open that up for me? There's a place right around the corner here called Agritopia, and this is it.
Sounds like my kind of place.
It's a planned community that refines village life for the modern family, spread across 11 acres of urban farmland. Agritopia embodies the spirit of Arizona's rich agricultural history. It's here in Gilbert. Here's some. Let's see. Do we have any? I can't show any pictures here, but we go there quite a bit. Oh, here we go. Yep, there we go. It's beautiful.
Nice.
Check out these pictures. It's they've got shared farmland over there, and little coffee shops and everything. It's a little village, and it's so cool to go over there because they all live there, nice little houses and everything. I'm just scrolling through some pictures, but there's little restaurants. Everything is farm fresh. They farm all their own stuff. They have their own plots and everything. They share all that stuff and they sell it in these little stores and things like that. But that's what they're eating.
Yes, that's my concept. Yes.
And I mean, in the little houses, it's so nice. It's quaint. It's kind of it's an open community, but it's their community. And
that's exactly, we should be doing that everywhere across the nation. We should.
It's really cool. And out here too, Barry, they have these places, these communities. They're 55 plus communities, but and my Larry, my stepfather, his sister lives out here, and we've become very good friends, and she lives in one of those communities, and we love to go over there. But that's the same spirit. It's they look after each other. All of them look after each other, right. and it's such a friendly community that way. And they have all kinds of events. They put on plays. They have all kinds of activities that they're constantly doing. Carol, my aunt Carol, she loves it over there. So, and we love going over there too. We've made quite a few friends over there. It's a cool concept, Barry. I really like the idea a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, I got another one here that I wanted to cover if I could find this again after I went all over the place. But coffee was next on the line because we were talking about coffee. And I may have, here it is. Okay, so coffee. Well, it's hard for some people to imagine starting their day with anything other than a cup of coffee.
Yes.
Which I couldn't even start the show without a cup of coffee. Right. The drought in Brazil, followed by frosts, have stunted the country's coffee harvest for 2022 and 23, and supply chain and labor issues have also played a role in rising prices. Again, I don't know. Is that right? It's always something here. Why is it my coffee? Although not the same as roasted coffee, instant coffee may be more of affordable choice here. While roasted coffee prices are up 15%, the reports are that instant coffee has only risen a bit less at 10.8%. That's not enough of a difference for me.
No, I totally agree.
I'm not a big fan of instant coffee, although I've had a couple of good ones. But
it's come a long ways. I'll say that.
Yeah. That's true, but I'll have to. I'm
Agreed.
just
I
gonna
know what
suck it
you're
up.
saying.
I'm just
I
gonna
hear
suck
you.
it up, and that's just gonna be one area that I'm going down with the ship on. Processed meats. Let's just do this one more. They're saying that BLS, I don't know what that is, says prices for other meat. The category, this is the substitute, is beef and peanut butter. Oh, processed meats. What are processed meats? Like lunch meat and stuff like that.
Let me tell you this. I get boar's head lunch meat. I get the Chipotle chicken. No, it's called blazing buffalo chicken because it's a little spicy on the outside, and the tavern ham. And this is what I had one this morning. I have fresh sandwiches with that, with romaine lettuce, and this time of year, those homegrown tomatoes. It makes such an incredible sandwich. But the point is, boar's head is not processed. Processed meats are known to, they're ground up with all kinds of fillers and God knows what else, and they're known to cause cancer. Think bologna. Bologna is, yeah. But your basic ham or whatever, if you don't get the organic or what have you, whatever it's called, it'll be processed. You get the cheap stuff, it'll be processed.
Yeah, and it's just like anything that has processed in it is probably going to be detrimental to your health.
It is. It is.
I didn't know that until recently, and it's made a tremendous change in my physical appearance. So,
that's funny. Yeah, for sure.
It is a big deal.
Did you have more on that?
I just this thing about the process, and then we'll move on. But this says that these processed meats have risen about 15%, and within that category, Frankfurters have seen an annual price increase of 18%. Peanut butter and other nut butters, along with cheeses, are great alternatives to lunch meat. Cheese isn't that cheap, though, but I love cheese.
But peanut butter, my peanut butter, I get organic stuff, but it's gone through the roof, too.
That's what I thought. She also points out that sandwiches made with sliced tomatoes, vegetables, and cheese can be delicious without lunch meat.
Oh, well, I've done that. I've done
like a caprese sandwich. Yeah.
You think of it like that. Mayonnaise, pickles, cheese, maybe lettuce. I've done that before. And if you're in the mood for it, it could be refreshing.
It's interesting. And everyone will go out. I love sandwiches. Yeah. And if I go out with Anne Marie and I'll order a sandwich, mine is going to have meat in it. But Anne Marie sometimes she'll get one and it'll be like a vegetable sandwich. And I'm like, the day I order a vegetable sandwich at a restaurant, you better check me into the hospital because something's wrong with me.
I know. I need a protein.
I can't see it, but it's meat is important to me. It is. Important.
Okay. So you made me think of this. If I know most of you are not watching. These are photos I remember to take of Patterson's Fruit Farm that we went to this weekend. And I told you about it in our last show that we were going.
Yeah, the fall. It's coming off the page right there.
Yeah. And this is where we get our pumpkins, our corn stalks, our different fall decor. And boy, this is the place, and mums, I didn't mention that. And this is the place that we had the most beautiful day. It was unbelievable. I honestly will never forget it. 2024.
That's beautiful, man. Wow. I love the colors.
Yeah, the color's amazing. And just wait till those leaves turn. And so we went there a little bit early in the season. There's Lisa's, she's going to be mortified. She's right there in the corner. But just a fun experience. And after that, we went to Tavern 6, which is this really nice restaurant in Kirtland that has a gorgeous patio and really good food. So we had just a great day.
I love that. This is the time of year. And by the way, what a beautiful blue sky that was.
Gorgeous.
I remember when I lived there, it was like those days where you didn't have a cloud in the sky were not normal.
Very true. Very true. Are you ready to move on, Merle?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I got all kinds of things. And as I said, we were running late, so I didn't have time to pull up some support materials on some of this. But one thing I wanted to talk to you about, this one is a little bit more of a philosophical conversation. We're talking about the Americans' alleged death in Switzerland's suicide pod prompts criminal investigation. I haven't looked at this clip yet, Okay, yeah. This is a short one. I probably won't, at full length, this is 1.5 minutes. I probably won't do the whole thing.
A criminal investigation is underway tonight after the first known death of an American woman in a so-called suicide pod in Switzerland. The woman is described as a 64-year-old from the Midwest who had an autoimmune condition. Police say she died in a forest near the German border, where the capsule called the sarcopod was placed. It's the first time it's ever been used, and it allows a person to release nitrogen gas into the chamber at the touch of a button. That removes all the oxygen, and it causes the person to fall asleep and then suffocate.
All right, that's good enough. Wow. So this raises a huge moral dilemma about allowing somebody to commit suicide of their own volition. And if you just say it like that, a lot of emotion will be put out there from all sides. However,
this is a tough subject, man.
It is.
I mean, this if you don't think about it, you can easily have a knee-jerk reaction, but there's a lot of nuance in this.
Now, when you put the stipulation in, this goes back to the Kevorkian days because it was the same thing. Back then, he had these like 3 levers. The one administered the first dose of a pain reliever or relaxer, muscle relaxer, something like that. The other did a higher dose, and the third was your lethal dose. You had to pull these levers by yourself, so you're killing yourself. The stipulation was that you had to have a terminal illness.
Right.
That's a big deal right there. Now,
if
you take that out of the equation, then you got a huge moral dilemma.
Yeah, I agree with you on this because
I had a bad day. I'm going to go in this.
Right. Yeah, I don't feel good. I don't feel right. My gender isn't right.
Oh,
or whatever.
God.
That
Yeah,
kind
that's
of thing it's a huge thing right now. And so you're right. And it's a slippery slope. But there is a place for this, I believe, when you take a look at, gosh, I've seen situations where a friend of mine, his sister had a tumor in her jaw, and she was what is it? Stage 4 cancer. I mean, there's no turning back from this. She had 6 months to live, but there were no assisted suicide laws that they could go with. So she just had to gut it out, but she wanted to be in heaven.
Right.
But this thing had to take its toll. Some people look at hospice as a way of speeding up the process. It's almost like assisted suicide. They put you on so much morphine that your body just kind of gives up and it speeds up your death that way. We see that. But this whole, my cousin Keith, when he was dying of ALS, he had I guess, I don't know what you call it. It's like a living will where it's like, hey, if I get to the point where I can't communicate anymore, he was attached to a breathing apparatus to cut off the vent. And that's what we did. And I was there, and it seemed like the right thing to do.
Dude, that seems so humane.
His will. That was his will. And when I saw him transition from life to death, I'd never seen that before. But he was a Christian, and I saw something that I'd never thought I would see. But he was 100% paralyzed, and he actually opened his eyes, and he kind of looked like he was glowing, and he got a smile on his face, and then he just kind of faded away. It looked like he was seeing somebody that he loved. And in my faith, the angels come and take you directly to the throne of Jesus Christ. And it looked like that was happening right before my very eyes. So
I believe it.
That's not the way I want to go, but I certainly understood. I wouldn't have wanted to live on that vent to just be in a vegetable.
No way.
Who would want that?
It's cruel. That's absolutely cruel.
But that's what I'm talking about. That's where this is, I mean, these people, this woman pressed the button. I don't know the whole situation there, but it sounds like she had a terminal illness, and
she did.
And that this was her choice.
They said, I'm sorry, in a different article I read about it, they said there's a voice, a robotic voice that after it locks and it's ready, it says, you may now proceed with your death. Something like that. Something morbid, right?
Okay.
They said she didn't hesitate to press the button.
Wow.
Like you would,
Okay.
that says a lot right there.
It does, and at the same time, it's so ominous and final. And could you? I can't even imagine like hearing that and then pressing the button and if it were me in that situation and I pressed it real fast like that, that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
She said she was in pain for 2 years. She's been wanting to do this for 2 years. And so I thought you would have a very direct question, I think is very interesting. From a Christian point of view, what does this, I thought that's the first thing you'd come back with, is something from the Bible, God's will, something like that. I thought you would say it's not right. Almost like the abortion issue. Hey, it's life. You can't do that. Did anything come into you in this regard?
No. No. You know, I don't see anything in the Bible. Okay, thou shalt not kill.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think in this situation, you know, we talk about abortion. This is the baby doesn't have a choice, right? But this person does have a choice, and they're faced with imminent death. That's what we're talking about, right? And terrible pain. I don't see where God is gonna judge you for that. I don't see it in the scriptures. I don't see
common
that.
sense. I'm right there with you.
Right.
I mean, like vehemently. Yeah.
Right. I just, you know, we serve a very gracious God, a very compassionate God that isn't just some God in the sky. He came down in the flesh and experienced all the torments of the earth. And so Jesus can understand the pain and suffering more than anybody else can, because he suffered for all of us. And so we have a very compassionate God. And my heart goes out for people that are in pain. And you see through the gospel, that's exactly what Jesus was, very compassionate. When he saw people in pain, he changed their situation instantly. And so I can't speak for him, but my heart says this isn't this. Although it seems so ominous,
It's merciful.
Also, if you're a person like me who believes that you already live in eternity, and physical death is really just a transition from one place to another, it seems like these people are saying, I'd rather be in heaven right now than experience this. I can't take the pain any longer. And I think our Lord understands that.
You know, just last week, I read a story from this woman that wrote a book about her near-death experience. In fact, I think she wrote a few of them on it. And she was very, like most, very transformed by her near-death experience. She was told to come back here and spread the message. And I forget the circumstances. It was a full week ago that I read this, but she said that, I forgot how she died, but it's just like all the other ones. The commonalities across all of our cultures, you got to say there's something to it. So she went through the white light or what have you. I don't know if those are exact words.
The tunnel and the white light. And
then felt completely overwhelmed with a pure feeling of unconditional love. And dude, I swear to God, that's what every one of us human beings are striving for, is we're trying.
I know, right?
That's why we say love is the final answer. Love makes everything worthwhile. Ultimately, when we get enveloped in that 100% unconditional love, you're not going to want to come back from that. Yeah. She said, okay, so a few things before I forget. She said, don't worry about leaving people behind. They're there. Like we are there as well as here.
I get this.
And she said there was a point where she was surrounded by 5 other of these energy beings. She was now an energy being, is how she kind of described it. And they decided to morph together, or at least parts of them, morph together for a moment. And now they knew everything about each other. Everything.
Interesting. That is very, very interesting.
Then she talked to Source. You could call that God. And she asked it, what is the meaning of life? Dude, I ask that question to myself like all day, every day. Think from every angle. I've always wanted to have a podcast called What is the Meaning of Life? Have every interesting person I could ever find as a guest, talk about that. One stipulation, can't say your kids. That's kicking the can down the road. I understand that when you have kids, they give you at life all the meaning in the world. Now you're doing everything for your kids and all of that. But now what's their meaning? What if they don't have, it's take that out of the equation. You still are left with this giant question. Well, what the hell are we doing here? And she said, source said,
yes,
I sent you, all of you out there, like I picture it like raining, so I could experience what I created. I feel through you feeling through this
I
universe.
love that. Okay.
Very interesting, isn't that?
It is very interesting.
I know. I'll never forget that because that's another piece of the mystery to me. I like it. It makes sense to me.
It does. And, now I'm very curious since you said that you think about this a lot. Mm-hmm. What kind of assessments have you come up with? Because I do think about this as well, and I've come up with some things too. But what do you? It isn't a straightforward. It's nuanced, right? So there could be a different answer every day. But what do you have right now?
Geez, I come in and out of things, but for the most part lately, I'm pretty sure that the reason why I'm at this point right now is because I now have this vocabulary that I could use, this understanding that I've come to, which is to say there's probably more on the heels behind that, right? Like, so I'm not saying I know everything. I'm just saying I got to this point now.
Right.
And that is, I really do seem to believe that we're in a simulation of our own creation. Or not I should say our creation, like our creators. Very much like that. I feel like maybe, did you and I have this conversation? I don't know if I had it on the podcast or not. But there's two main simulation theories. One is like the Matrix, where we are plugged in. Basically, we're batteries for an alien race. Maybe we're kind of like they're the host, we're the parasites, whatever. But we are plugged in, and we're said, do you want to take the red pill or the blue pill? One of those pills makes you not go to sleep, and you're aware of being plugged into this machine. And, being used. The other pill, the blue pill, I think it is, you go into this miraculous simulation, and it's a life where you didn't have a life. It may not be real, but would you rather know reality? Now, the other main philosophy behind the simulation is that it was Mark I was talking with about this. We're like the game The Sims. And back when we first had computer games, I never played it. I put up graphics on here on that podcast, but it's still going on today. So imagine you're like these 3 pixels. Your dad is like 3 pixels and blocky thing, running around. You make them do things. You try to make them earn money,
right,
so that the family can flourish. Well, over 20 years, they're 100% lifelike on your computer screen now. And maybe because the physics, the makers bought a physics engine, so it operates like this real world and all that. You're starting to automate more and more. Okay, so he goes to work 8 hours a day. He's home on the weekends, the father. The kids are off to school. They're doing this, that, or the other. So we got that on autopilot. They earned that part. We gave them that package. So but we get to go in and mess with them where we want. Okay, they're dating. Let's make this happen and see what happens. Let's throw this little monkey wrench in there. Let's have that cop car pull up behind them when they're making out in the wherever and see what happens. Okay, so I remember the whole conversation with Mark. Now I pulled up the Unreal Engine YouTube that shows like New York City's completely mapped out in this artificial world. This is real, but it's called Unreal Engine. And you can virtually walk through New York City, and all the people around you look real. The cars look real. The stop signs look real. Times Square looks real. It's all mapped out. So we're ready to enter that. Oh, so back to the Sims. So you raise this family. Computers have gotten more and more sophisticated. They're all lifelike. They have, there's like a non-human role or something like that. They're in this philosophy on simulation, assuming you and I are the Sims, we are those characters that have reached consciousness.
Okay.
Self-awareness. So here we are operating in this world. We're having this podcast, yet our creators or operators or users or whatever, players, are watching us and seeing what happens. Now, what happens if all of a sudden I gave them 5,000 followers because this happened or something? And let's watch their lives change. Ooh, that's fun. So that's one of them. We are simply, I'll say again, characters, software characters that have reached self-awareness. Not
that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. So is this like something that one of the several things that could possibly be, because it was the question is the meaning of life. And so I just to distill it down is that we're characters and it's really for the enjoyment of God to see how we react to certain situations.
Okay. So where I'm at with my theory on a meaning of life right now is from what I'm seeing. So now we are becoming the creators. We are likely going to merge with this AI that is running away like a freight train. And we're likely going to merge with it as it gains, as we get to the point of singularity with it, meaning it becomes self-aware and it replicates itself in a better form. And then replicates that in a better form, and then replicates that in a better form. And now all of a sudden, in the matter of a day, it's 1,000 times smarter, better, whatever. So in other words, infinitely. It just goes infinitely. And we merge with it, and we create a new universe with new characters. And this has happened an infinite number of times, and that's what infinity is.
So you see it as a process we're leading to sort of an evolutionary phase, or we're in an evolutionary phase, actually. And all the meaning is the things that are happening is part of that meaning going towards that.
Dude,
and you could see where technology is. It's not a coincidence that all these technologies are evolving at the same time. Is kind of what I got out of what you're saying.
We're caterpillars building our cocoon. And they don't know why they're building that cocoon, but they must build it. And that's how we are with technology. We have always tried to make better technology. It's like our number one driving force. Yes. You can't stop us. You can't stop it.
That's a very interesting perspective. As I take a look at the same thing, this technology piece I see is fascinating to me because as I look at the Bible and I look at especially the books of Revelation and Daniel, there are certain things that are happening. These are prophetic books in the Bible talking about what's going to happen in the end times. And for the Bible, people are scared of what end times means. What does that mean? It's sort of but it's all gloom and doom. It's actually a new Genesis that's happening, a new beginning. It's not the end of life. It's really the end of the reign of Satan over this world. That's really what's happening. All this death, all this destruction, wars, diseases, all this is about to go away. But when I take a look at the technology piece, it's really interesting, Barry.
The parallels.
I like the way you said it. Is that we're almost like driven to create these things, and at the same time, in the Bible, these things that are going to happen cannot happen without the technology that makes it happen. Let me give you an example. There is a prophecy that there will be these two prophets that appear at the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem and start preaching about God, and Antichrist can't stand it. And he wants them to go away. He wants to kill them, actually, but nothing can stop these guys from preaching the word. And then finally, Antichrist is able to murder these two right at the wall, and he leaves their bodies dead there for 3 days, and the whole world celebrates this event, and they give gifts to each other. And after 3 days, a voice is heard from heaven that says, come up here, and those two bodies rise up into, they disappear. Okay, here's my question is, how in the world could the whole world not only know about the two prophets, but have enough time in 3 days to give gifts to each other? It's not possible without having satellite television. It's just not possible. And so that's what I'm saying is that if you like really look at the Bible with your critical thinking, there's no way that these things can happen without technology for it to happen, which we are oddly driven to produce. Like in a furious, like sweat from the brow. We got to produce this. And we're producing it not knowing that these things are needed. That's why we're furiously producing it. Who is the creative spirit in the Bible? It is the Lord, not Satan. It's the Lord. So all this technology to me spells out that God is the one that's inspiring people to furiously put these things together.
Agreed. Yeah.
And here's my point of the whole thing is that this is a God thing. God is love. When we look at, interestingly, in the Bible, the languages used are very descriptive, unlike English. Love is a very broad term for English, which encompasses many aspects of different kinds of love. But when we talk about God is love in the Bible, it's the agape form of love, which is the self-sacrificing form of love. My premise is that our meaning to life has everything to do with that agape kind of love. And when I look at my life, Barry, I look at my job, I look at all the things I have to do in life, where I need to live and paying the bills and all that kind of stuff. And when it boils down to it, the most meaningful things in my life have everything to do with, well, what we're doing right now. You're one of my very best friends in life. I mean, you're like a life partner to me. When I'm taking my final breaths, I'm not going to be thinking about my job or what I got to. I'm going to be thinking about the love that I had with my friends and my family.
Yeah,
and sure. I think that just like you said with the Sims example, if it's agape love that God has for us, then maybe you're kind of right in that whole thing, but it's that he has this self-sacrificing love for us. So as he puts this stuff together for us, he's creating ways for us to prosper. Like it says in the Bible, it says that he works all things together for good for those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So if he's controlling the game, he's controlling it for good. And he wants, and if we're made in his image and he is love, then that should be the center of everything that we are, is that self-sacrificing love. And we talked about this a lot. I know you're in agreement with this. There's this premise of when we're in trouble and having a hard time, the best way to get out of it is help somebody else.
Yeah, right. That's the agape. You
activate
the agape love.
There it is right there. Yeah. And it causes you to rise above. And even if you're not even paying attention to your stuff, somehow your stuff starts to automatically get better. Yeah. And to me, it just seems like that we've lost our way as a society when it comes to that, and that there are forces in this world that are trying to extinguish that flame, like every turn that we have, which tells me that that's the center of the battle between good and evil. And so that must be what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to love more, and the more that we love, it's just like that Beatles song that says, and in the end, the love you make is equal to, or I would say greater than, the love that you take. You put love out there and it exponentially comes back to you. It's just like when the rain falls, it produces a yield of crops that are much greater than the rain was. And so this is what it is, man. I've just made myself happy.
Oh, there you go. So I've said before, I still kind of believe that I think when you speak from the Bible's point of view on this stuff and the meaning of life, I think a lot of times they were writing using the vocabulary that they had and not using a vocabulary that they didn't have yet. Meaning, like I didn't,
I agree with that.
Yeah, we didn't know what a simulation was. We didn't know virtual. We didn't have the word or the virus in the word or something going viral today. We have vocabulary and a way of thinking of things now that we didn't have 30 years ago.
I totally agree. I mean, here is the book of Revelation is John writing this, and God is showing him these things that are going to happen in the future. But if you're, a year, 30 AD, and you're seeing nuclear destruction, or you're seeing, even the weapons of war that we use today, you're going to have a hard time understanding what that is. For instance, it says in the Revelation that the false prophet will have the ability to cause the image of the Antichrist to cause fire to come down from the sky and consume its enemies. Okay, so this is John writing this. Now, we today have AI. We actually have very real looking robots that look like cyborgs. That
just wait till next year and the year
that are tied into what it says is that what we get out of the book of Revelation is that the Antichrist is going to put images of himself all over the place that can speak and actually talk, and through the power of, they say, through the power of the false prophet, seemingly this is all deception, can cause fire to come out of the sky. Let's say a satellite or a drone can shoot something down at. We see where drones can just totally take you out.
Oh yeah,
this is it. How else would John describe this? He doesn't know what a drone is, or a helicopter, or even an airplane, or a satellite, let alone a satellite or GPS. But this is it. And it talks about how we won't be able to buy and sell without the number of the beast. Well, how are you going to implement that worldwide without having a world wide web and having some type of, we've got these QR codes now that we can, you remember the vaccine thing you had to get so that you could enter into buildings. And so it's going to be like that, except for it's going to be under your skin. There's already a chemical that's been invented called luciferin that can be put under your skin. And when you put it under a light, it's the same stuff that fireflies use to light up. Mm-hmm. You put it under a light, it'll glow. It can show the mark of the beast, so that, I know, luciferin, so that so that you can buy and sell. And our smartphones are tracking us everywhere we go right now. We've already heard about these 15-minute cities where if you try to leave, all your stuff will shut off. Right. It's all the stuff that's in the book of the Revelation and this technology. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, in a big way, what you said, Barry, I totally agree. I see it a little bit differently, but they're this very similar tracks.
Right. And probably going to get more clarity on it in the near future with how more similar they are. We really were in a time crunch today, and I have a lot to go over. One thing is a priority. So I'm going to give you a list of things so you could pick out anything else you want to talk about. But there is one thing I want to make sure that I get to, and I'm sure you have things too. So I want to just make sure I get to one very important thing.
Got it.
And then you go from there. But I'm going to give you a list of things first. So after the death pod, that was that big, long discussion. Right?
Well, that was crazy, man.
It was.
And even that device was ominous looking.
Yeah, a little bit, but also it looked
I have a nightmare about
very
that.
Futuristic.
It was a futuristic. It was like Brave New World, right? Like, did you ever see that? It's Aldous Huxley. It is very futuristic, and just let me just say this: you've had me listening to like Brett Weinstein. And several of the what's the guy's name that we like?
James Lindsay.
Yeah, James Lindsay, yes. and stuff like that. It's like these things are leading to a 1984 or Brave New World type of thing that's happening, and it's on purpose. But that little device looked like something right out of one of those movies.
Yeah, for sure.
More Brave New World than 84, but very interesting.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What another subject is Iranian. There's an Iranian threat to Trump. It's on the Ayatollah's website. So there's some discussion to be had there. The FCC reports George Soros, has approved to purchase Odyssey for $300 million and 230 other radio stations. So he's purchasing up all of these radio stations. Most of them host conservative stuff. So he's monopolizing on that across the world. There is the breaking news of Eric Adams' indictment. It is unsealed, and the New York mayor is charged in campaign contribution scheme. They first went after all of his underlings. And so, the question on that is he being set up by the government, or is his administration all truly corrupt? Okay. Now, where I'll just go down and say, in the end, I want to talk about Matt Walsh's new movie that's out, Am I Racist? Oh my God, it's a must-watch comedy. And Janice Jackson is on record as saying Kamala Harris is not black. Her publicity rep came out and said, "Oh no, we didn't mean that." And Janet Jackson came back out and said, "No, she's not black." And I could give you more backstory on that if we ever get to it. I have the video about the robot arresting a man at a Days Inn hotel. That's
oh my God.
Pretty wild. But what I really have to get to, the priority is Woodstock for the Adventurous and Responsible. This is the title of a podcast on Jordan Peterson's podcast. I think it was Jordan Peterson's.
It was, yeah.
Okay. And I have the intro to play and the Join the Resistance website. I just really feel this is super important to talk about. So I'm going to share this, and this should just take a second.
Somebody like me.
You got sound?
Yep.
Okay.
Who is fundamentally secular in my understanding of the universe, it is pretty clear that there is something that is reasonably described as a spiritual dimension to the battle that we are engaged in. Not only does the opposition appear to be playing with demonic tropes for reasons I can scarcely imagine, but something well beyond our well-being as a modern people is at stake. Our ability to continue is at stake.
Wow.
Okay, you know what's interesting, Barry, is that I didn't hear that at the beginning of the show. For some reason. That part I missed, but but that's actually in the show, like halfway through the show he says that. And what's interesting, as you played that, I'm like, wow, of all the things he said, Barry picked out the very same thing that blew me away. I didn't realize it was right at the very beginning of the show.
It's the teaser.
I thought about that all week, that here's a guy that just says that he's extremely secular. He's a scientist. He's a doctor. He's an academic. Okay. I have a lot of respect for Brett Weinstein. I think
Stein.
Is it Stein?
He does not want to be confused with what's the Weinstein?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Weinstein now, huh? It's like Frankenstein. Weinstein
and his brother Eric Weinstein. I believe they've always pronounced it Weinstein.
I believe you're right, but anyway, getting back to this, just these guys are extremely secular, right? I mean, I love how he put that together. You have even echoed the same thing on the show where you talked about, I never really believed that there was a devil out there, but with the events that have happened, I think it was right after that movie came out, The Sound of Freedom. Yes. You said that I now can see
the case for true evil
entity that's out there, and that evil is. And I really believe, after I heard that on the podcast, I was in the gym. I was just like, well, praise God that people are seeing that, through the guise of all these world events, behind it all is this amazing battle that's going on between good and evil, between light and darkness, between God and Satan.
enough to get these very pivotal, intelligent people like Tulsi Gabbard, Brett Weinstein, Vivek Ramaswamy, some others. Vivek was not a Democrat, I don't think, ever, but I'm going to get to this other point. But to get these other people to really leave the Democratic Party, people that like Brett Weinstein has always called himself a progressive Democrat.
Right.
And then they turned on him and everything. And he says his views never changed. They did. And
we've heard that a lot lately.
Yeah. Yeah. So what this is coming to, what he was introducing is the Rescue the Republic movement. And they are having a rally. Now, here's something, Merle. In our last podcast together, which was 2 weeks ago, I was very angry about Trump's performance at the debate. And I said, if they really want to do anything right, you got all of these great people like the ones I started mentioning, and I'll get to the lineup here in a minute. I said, those people need to get out and spread the word and do something so big that even the mainstream media can't ignore it. And they're doing it. And I didn't know that. So this Sunday, the 29th in Washington, D.C. at noon, is a republic is under attack by a conglomerate of industrial complexes. It's time to rescue the republic. We need you to join the resistance. Together, we can restore the values that make our republic and the Western world so beautiful and worth preserving. This is an extreme. So this is so important to these very intelligent people. They've gotten together to form this. I mean, do you see this artwork back here? You can see RFK Jr., see Trump there. There's
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, the comedian.
And there's Malone is there. Dr. Malone.
Elon Musk. Brett is right there. There's Tulsi. And
who's that with a colonial hat on?
I can't tell, but it's really great artwork. And
that is pretty cool.
It's showing you the importance of this. So they talk about at our heart, this is an agreement to distribute opportunity as widely as possible. Today, the foundation that makes up the West is under attack. This movement demands radical change and requires liberals, conservatives, and independents of every color and creed to unify to rescue the West. This is very important because they've demonized the rights efforts as MAGA. And this is MAGA plus libertarians plus independents plus anybody that can recognize the danger and evil. They use the word evil a lot for this deep state movement that is going on right now. And so they talk about our 8 pillars. These are the 8 pillars that are super important, that are under attack and need rescued. War, number 1. War is always the last resort. That's the hallmark of libertarianism. War is always the last resort. So it's it's versus the military industrial complex. No shit, it's the first one. I mean, that one, I can't say enough about it.
Right.
The informed consent, the medical industrial complex. I'm going to assume that that's talking about the trans thing where they won't. They try not to tell the parents, oh, now we're calling your kid by different pronouns, and he's going to start getting puberty blockers.
Well, there's so many different aspects to the medical industrial complex, and really the pharmaceutical industry is at the very center of this. And
right.
it's COVID, it's these vaccinations, it's all of these other things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol. They keep moving the goalposts on these kinds of things. The anti-anxiety medication, it's like 90% of the people here in this country now are on one of those medications on a constant basis. And the pharmaceutical industry is making tons and tons of money off of that and becoming more and more powerful to the point where they are controlling your healthcare. You are not in control any longer. And they're forcing us into situations where we don't get informed consent. And here comes the whole monkeypox thing right now. And they're going to try to force us into another vaccination. Beware. This is a big deal. Go ahead.
I think we're more prepared than they know and realize. I hope we are. Sometimes I start feeling hopeless.
I think that we're more educated, but I also think that from a legal standpoint, they're battening down the hatches so that this next time isn't going to be like, oh, well, you can speak your mind. No, this is going to be, you're going to be forced to do it, or the consequences for not doing it are going to be way more severe than they were the last time. And I can tell you that the last time was pretty severe for me. And very few people can stand up to that kind of pressure.
Right. Okay, so number 3 is the censorship industrial complex. So that's censorship versus and propaganda, the problems that we are facing, and people are waking up to that in massive numbers. Number 4, this one should be obvious to all of us, the immigration industrial complex, our
Big
border
business.
policy.
Big
Oh,
business.
isn't it? Number 5 is lawfare abuse, the injustice industrial. Oh my God. And it's
huge.
like we can't even talk about that.
I know. I mean, when we saw BLM, we didn't really understand that this was going to be part of the injustice industrial complex. When we look at what happened with January 6th, we look at everything that happens to Donald Trump and anybody that's so-called MAGA.
Correct. Next one, finance industrial complex, our monetary freedom. That's something that we are going to need to come to grips with, and that's our entire economic system, but that's a big conversation for another day. This one I'm not so sure about. Developmental industrial complex, family and sovereignty.
Well, that is this whole thing about being able to commandeer your kids, Barry.
Okay.
That's what's going on right there, is that are the parents really sovereign over their kids, or is the state?
And that leads right to number 8, the academic industrial complex, which is a gigantic problem because this Marxist left has control of our kids from the earliest of ages through college. That is quite a brainwashing session that they go through.
It is interesting how they put these industrial complexes together. I've never seen it organized like that before, and I loved when they started talking about the enemy is these industrial complexes. And when you understand how these industrial complexes are financed, and you take a look at these hedge funds and these non-government organizations, NGOs, and how those are financed as well, a lot of them through our tax dollars, and they're being used against us. So we're working, we're shoveling a ditch, and every time we put some dirt behind us, there's a little bit of money comes out of it. Somebody comes and snatches that money up and uses it for organizations that only work against you, that put more burden on you, that make it harder for you to shovel that dirt.
Yes.
I mean, it is, and it keeps getting heavier, and the burden keeps getting heavier and heavier to the point where it leads to the 2030 you'll own nothing and love it kind of thing. So this is what they're fighting against. And what I love about what Weinstein has put together here is that this is there's no party affiliation to this. This is an existential threat to freedom. And that is something that Democrats and Republicans and independents and everybody except for communists.
Everybody should be terrified by this. And if you think you're a communist today, do some research on what has happened throughout the 20th century with communism.
And that, I think, is really it, is that if you think that this is the way, you should do some research and look at all the death and murder that's happened.
And show us when it was a good thing.
But we have to be realistic, Barry, because under our system that we have right now, capitalism has been corrupted here in America.
Yes.
And as a result, it has led to a lot of death as well, a lot of war. And it's because we're not actually operating under a capitalist program anymore. It's a fascist program. And you can see it through these monopolies or these governmental or these business oversight committees that are actually these hedge funds.
Yes,
and the hedge funds have become the governing bodies of these businesses, and they formed huge trusts, huge monopolies. And you and I have talked about this, but the interesting thing that we're learning about these, how fascism and monopolies work, is how they can also implement public policy through this through this event. So we look at DEI, we've talked about very much, but this is what's being implemented through this fascist mechanism to cause a philosophy that permeates our not only our economy, but who we are as a people. And the ultimate goal is to transform you and I into different people. It really is a cult religion that we're dealing with here. And as I take a look at the similarities of the rhetoric on that side, it seems to me that they have mimicked a lot of Christianity. And in fact, that is what the deal is. It's a false, it's a fake, it's one of those cheap fakes to make you feel like this is where everything is supposed to go. This is right, but it's really man's religion, and it's slavery. It's indentured servanthood is what it is. But when I start to learn that the object is to fundamentally change people, to change them into a different person, and you have a new revelation, and you have a whole new world view of how things happen. It sounds a lot like Christianity, where I'm changed on the inside and I'm a different person. I've been crucified with Christ, so I no longer live, and the life I live now is the life of Jesus Christ living through me. Well, that's what Christianity is really all about. It's that love living through you. But in communism, it's the same thing, except for it's their philosophy that has changed you and transformed you into almost a different species. That's how they say it, actually. And you believe in their dogma that much. It's a religion. And that's why I find it interesting how they've implemented these mechanisms so that it's almost impossible to talk to somebody that is imbibing that kind of philosophy.
You can't. That's why communists always denounce religion, other religions, because they need
it's their religion, right? Exactly. And it's something that's come up with James Lindsay and it's this language that they speak. He's been reading a lot of Lenin and Marx and Hegel. And when he reads these things, it's almost impossible to understand what they're saying, Barry.
Yeah.
Like it's like a whole different language.
He's really good at
using thought. He can cut to the thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the whole thing is like it doesn't really make sense, but it's a lot of big words that sound like they sound good together, but it's part of the deception.
To that end, and I want to wind up and go to something else because of the time, but I said in the last podcast 2 weeks ago, I think Lindsay's losing me at this point a little bit because of the language thing, and then he's so insistent on communism when we're in an oligarchy. Well, you know what? In the next podcast, the very next podcast, he addressed that. And he calls it 21st century communism, and now you use the oligarchy is I guess
that's
the
how they're doing
bourgeoisie.
it. Yeah, that's how they're doing it. And they figured out that the old communism.
He was ahead of me.
Yeah, he was. He's ahead of us.
Yes.
That guy's too smart, man.
Man, he is. And just very clear. He's very clear. That's why, my God, we need him. I think there's a whole lot of things. I hope it's not too little, too late. I was giving thought to, gotta hurry up. I was giving thought to the fact that it was probably good that Trump lost last time. And now this movement everybody got so freaking serious that they actually they created this resistance right here. It's called, I want to make sure you know this, it's called jointheresistance.org. And all of these great minds have come together to make you aware of it. So we got Brett Weinstein, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Russell Brand, Peterson, Tulsi Gabbard, Charlie Kirk, Matt Taibbi. There's entertainers on here. There's all kinds of people, and Rob Schneider's on there. So there's just an absolute ton of people that recognize the importance of this. And again, this takes off at noon this Sunday. So go to jointheresistance.org and get familiar with that. And I want to go on to whatever else you want to go on to.
Well, I think that it's interesting, just staying on this for just a second
Sure.
longer, just we tie it all back to what Brett Weinstein said earlier, is that as a secular person, he can see that this is
a big
that there's a spiritual aspect to this. And so he's pulling this together, and all of these people are coming, I would assume, in agreement with what he is saying here. And this is we are turning a corner here from what I can see with the awareness. To your point, Barry, about, a new vaccination comes out. It's not going to be the same as last time because people are awake. They try to make you woke, but instead people became awake. And
yes.
that is a very positive thing. Speaking of that, let's go to Eric Adams on this. So Adams is facing 45 years in prison. It says a defiant New York City Mayor Eric Adams vowed to fight the charges he faces as prosecutors outlined a 57-page indictment on Thursday. And this is all regarding campaign finance issues here. And I thought, when I first read this, Barry, I thought, what? This is weird. Why would they go after Eric Adams? Like, isn't that their boy? But then I remembered that he made the biggest noise when all these illegals were coming into New York, and he was standing against it. I even think he went down to Washington. Everybody was like, go talk to Joe Biden. And he went down there, and now he is saying that he knew that this would happen. Let's see. He says he's being targeted for standing his ground to protect citizens of New York. That's what I first heard. I thought, what? He's not trying to. But then I remembered, oh my gosh, he actually was trying to protect me. And as much as I don't like him, the truth is he was trying to protect them. And now this is what happens when you go against the deep state, Barry.
Yep. I totally agree.
It's lawfare. That's what
it is. When they turn on their own, it's evil. And again, he was their boy, and he's like, come on in, all that, playing along. And then it's like, whoa, I got to manage this, you can't. I said before, this whole movement is like the Pied Piper who plays the flute, and all these rats are following him and walk right off the cliff. That's what they're doing, man. If you follow
I see it more like a pirate ship, man. It's like Blackbeard. If you get out of line,
walk the plank.
Walk the plank.
I guess that's a good way.
But I'm the first mate.
Right.
Loved you yesterday, but we hate you today. And it goes back to there's no honor among thieves, right? They will knock you out. They don't care. They're like insects. As soon as you got the stink on you, all of them attack you. And Eric Adams looks like he's and it's a lot. It seems like it's a lot easier for them to put guys like Eric Adams away that was on their team, and then there's going to be because no one's going to stick up for him. There's going to be nobody on the Democrat Party that's going to try to get into that fray and help him out. That's not going to happen. And we've seen it happen a ton of times before, but isn't it crazy how this is? And hopefully this opens more people's eyes to what's going on. I got one interesting story.
Okay.
Go ahead, Barry.
I just want to make an announcement. At the end of this, please stay tuned for Mark Tennant's 2-minute AI DIY tip. It's 2 minutes on your latest AI tip. And I want to say the last one, both Lisa and I really found something very interesting. It was so simple. And I use this tip now. He's like, his example was, okay, so I want you to create a story, have AI create a story on gardening. Boom, here it is. It's really simple, right? He goes, now tell it to play the role of a gardener. And it makes a completely different story that's way more detailed. He goes, that's the importance. Tell it to play a role. Like for me, I tell it now, you are an expert marketer. I want you to create an enticing headline that will get somebody to want to read this article. Give me 10 examples.
Oh, I love that. I'm so glad to know that. It's a
that
big
simple.
Deal.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that.
Oh, that's cool. I love that. Okay, that's exciting stuff here. How about this one? I can't even believe some of the news that we've had here this week. Hezbollah vows to punish Israel after pager explosions across Lebanon. Had you heard this?
Oh, of course. Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay. So, and
But
then also we had a follow-up where walkie-talkies blew up. Like
I didn't know that.
The next day, or
I
maybe it
didn't
was
know
2
that.
days later, and a few of them blew up at the funerals of the pager incident.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So these Hezbollah leaders go to the funeral, and their walkie-talkies blow up.
Okay. Oh, jeez.
Okay. So
I want to pitch this thing now.
Here's the, I know, right? It makes me look at my smartphone and like, what the, okay. And you know, I work in the my company still sells pagers. So we had to put out a statement that our pagers aren't going to blow up and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? But here's my question to you. How do you feel about this? Here's a terrorist group, and they're doing terrible things by killing innocent people. And, you know, if you cause a pager to blow up, you're going to maybe kill the guy, but you're probably going to kill other people around that guy as well. Here, Israel is fighting against terrorism, but they're using terrorism, the evil terrorism, to
They're
fight
all the same.
evil. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's my question. How do you see that?
Same. I'll answer it the same way every time, no matter how often I'm asked. I think our role in it, if we think that we're some kind of police of the world for some reason, is that we should get all the leaders together. If they need money for some reason, the oil-rich Middle East needs our money when we're $34 trillion in debt. That makes no sense. But if they need money, we should set up a GoFundMe for them over there. They can raise their own money amongst themselves, and we should hold a delegation, diplomacy. And let them put all the leaders in a room and let them fight it out however they must. They're never going to come to a solution as far as I can see. They never have. I know giving them our money and encouraging more war and participating in more war isn't going to make anything any better. We prove that everywhere we go.
Yeah,
so,
you know,
it should not be at the forefront of our headlines in our newspapers, because we should take care of ourselves first. We got enough problems.
And I guess a follow-up question is really getting to the point. Terrorism itself, should we fight? Okay, you know, we've been terrorized before, right here in America. Should we fight terrorism with terrorism?
No, I don't know. That's a really complicated question, because that's right there with defund the FBI, CIA, and all the other three-letter acronyms. Boy, do I see the reason. No, we need to restructure them. We need to replace the leadership. We need to get back to the basics, the moral tenets of it, because I know for sure our intelligence agencies have headed off a lot more terrorist attacks that would have happened than not.
And wait, let me make a point on that, because we've also seen where our intelligence agencies have actually participated with the terrorists. And when we start to look at 9/11 and we start to look at some of the rumors that are there that seem to be a bit more than rumors, like for instance, Osama bin Laden being a part of the CIA itself. Then you have to. And then when you start to look at our American history and you see, like, for instance, the Soviet Union and the United States has participated in financing the Soviet Union. Oh, also China, also Vietnam, the Viet Cong. In fact, all the weapons the Viet Cong used against the Americans were made or financed by the United States. You start to realize that there's this thing that you brought up earlier about the military-industrial complex and these wars. But wars do serve a purpose for those who are trying to control people. And that is, under war circumstances, people are willing to give up their liberties. And so they're much more easily controlled. In fact, when you take a look at 1984, the book, you had a situation where these three different nations, which was all the world was made up of at that time, were constantly at war. And therefore, Winston, the main character, was willing to put up with less. He had to drink the victory gin, which tasted like coffee grounds. You know, it's interesting when we look at the state of the world right now, and how this administration came in 4 years ago and lit up the world with war. And you start to realize that, wait a second, war controls people, and people that want to control you want more war. Makes you think about this upcoming election.
Yeah,
what's really at stake here, and why are they trying to kill Donald Trump? It seems like
trying very hard.
That seems like all these things are related.
Yeah, for sure. And I heard on a podcast this morning about the Iranian threat to Trump's life. It's like, what do they have, 38 days or something like that to do it? Yeah. Because they can't, if they do it, listen to this point, if they do it before, they're going to be heralded as heroes by the left. And we're sunk. I mean, any resistance movement is basically going to be dead with it for a long time. I mean, the setback is you can't understate the setback that would be to true democracy, not the crap that they're talking about. So they got 38 days to try to pull this off, because if they do it after, well, then that's World War III. They're not going to make an attempt on Trump's life as president, assuming if he were president, you know.
I fully agree with what you're saying.
We're in dire times, man, is my point.
You know, I agree. It's interesting that you're talking about this, and you know, you had sent me a good video with Vivek Ramaswamy on it. Who was that?
He was on Lex Friedman's podcast.
Lex Friedman. That was a really interesting podcast.
The whole thing was.
And here, the big deal for Ramaswamy is the bureaucratic state that we live in right now, and he sees this as our number one priority, that we've got to eliminate the size of the federal government through these bureaucracies, and I happen to agree with him
100%.
This is it is unconstitutional that really the bureaucracy is not a part of our constitutional government. So it is actually a parasite on our government, but now it actually runs our government, and our elected officials are figureheads. So I thought it was interesting when he talked about these Supreme Court cases, Barry, that have passed. One of them is West Virginia versus the EPA, which he says is the most important case in our generation. It passed in 2022, and it says that if Congress has not passed a rule into law itself, and it relates to a major question of policy or economics, the question, it can't be undone with the stroke of a pen by a regulator or unelected bureaucrat. That literally means that most federal regulations are unconstitutional, and then you combine that Supreme Court case with Loper Bright Enterprises versus the United States. It's it's Chevron deference, which stated that the federal courts have to defer to agencies or bureaucracies' interpretation of the law, not their own interpretation of the law. And that actually is a reversal of a law that passed back in the 80s, which said, so basically, since the 80s, if there's any question on any court case question on policy or decision, it's always going to be the bureaucracy that comes in to advise the court on which way to go, giving the bureaucracy judge, jury, and execution rights over the public. And what he's saying now is the Supreme Court has reversed all of that. And therefore, a new administration coming in has the constitutional right, and really, I would imagine the responsibility, to eliminate a large part of our bureaucratic state, because the bureaucracy itself has become unconstitutional. So he had this whole method of eliminating 75% of the bureaucracy.
And it was genius in its simplicity, right? Go ahead.
It was genius in its simplicity, but I had a couple, and I loved it as you thought I would. But I had some questions on it, which is, you know, he mentioned that there were 4 I think he said 4 million people that would be eliminated right away by this. And when I think about some of my friends that work for the federal government, I started thinking about what's that going to do to the job market.
I know.
I see
I thought
that it
that
has
too.
to be done, but if you
it'll
put all
create
those,
some hard times.
yeah. You know, I think the bottom line here on this is no matter what, in order to get out of the situation that we're in, it's going to create hard times and it's going to be tough to get
They're
through.
doing the exact same thing right now. Argentina's just a little ahead of us.
Yes.
They elected their first libertarian president. What's his name again? Mila?
Oh, I'm never going to be able to pronounce his name.
It's pretty simple.
Millie or something like that.
Yeah, close,
Miley.
right. Yep, close. But he has been making huge cuts. And he said right on day one, he told everybody, this is going to be painful for 3 years. Now, what Vivek said is to eliminate 75% of our government. And I agree with that, as crazy as that sounds. Our government is the largest organization in the history of civilization.
Yep.
And so to eliminate 75%, the first thing you do is eliminate everybody, every government worker whose Social Security ends in an even number. Well, that's half of them right there. And then you do that. So then you're left with 50% of the government. Then you do the same kind of thing again. And now you're down to, you eliminated 75%.
Yeah, he said this could be done in 2 days.
Yeah. And what it does, he goes, so you can't complain that you're a victim of racist, sexist.
Right.
That's the brilliance.
That was brilliant. Yeah, that part is
brilliant.
That part is brilliant. But I've looked at some of these stats regarding the federal budget, and one of the things that is in there is entitlements, and the other one is our interest that we pay on our national debt, which is $35 trillion right now.
Yeah.
Together, that takes up our entitlements is, paying for insurance and benefits for our largest employee bank ever in human history. Entitlements is 54% of the federal budget.
Oh my God.
And then interest payments, and I was looking at this reading this book, and this was the last edition was in 2012, and it was saying our interest payments were 14% of our federal budget. So now obviously our federal budget our debt has gone up tremendously since that time. But when you put those two figures together, the 51 and the 14, you're looking at 65% of our budget goes to entitlements and paying down the interest on the federal debt. That only leaves a third of the budget for things like national defense and infrastructure. And so what Vivek is talking about is a way to reduce that big, especially that 52%, 51%. That takes a huge bite out of that federal budget, which frees up so many dollars for. First off, we could reduce taxes across the board.
It has to happen.
We could sink money into things that absolutely need to be paid for. But it is amazing when we start to look at this look at reducing the federal government in light of those numbers, the entitlements numbers. And I really liked what Vivek was saying, is that really the only two things the federal government should be focused on is our borders and protection of private property. And really, if you take a look at the Constitution, he's right. Those are the two main things for the federal government, and they've shirked their responsibility on both of those. I mean, right in front of our faces. And if you really asked the general public, what is the purpose of the federal government? Those are the two main things. They probably would not be able to answer that question.
Correct, because they're failing miserably on those two things right now.
Absolutely.
Right. Do you want to go to something else? Do you want me to take something?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Because we're going to have to wind
And
up.
we'll have to wrap it up pretty soon. Yep.
I wanted to talk about, this is for me on the lighter side a little bit,
Good, I got
but
one
Matt
too.
Walsh's movie, Am I a Racist, just came out. Now, he is a podcaster and filmmaker for the Daily Wire.
I love Matt Walsh. He is awesome.
He is awesome.
He did the one, What is a Woman? Oh my God. This guy has got cojones, man.
And this is said to be totally a comedy. It's called a comedy documentary.
Did you see him at the DNC?
I don't think so.
He was wearing a Make America Great hat.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
He was getting in everybody's interview and going in the background and like with that red hat on. It was awesome.
Well, see, that's the thing. He's got balls of steel, right?
He really does.
And he knows what he stands for. Now, I pulled up the Rotten Tomatoes page on this movie, which is playing in theaters right now, and it's really doing well. Of course. Could you imagine being a critic, having to write a critical review for your entire career on the line?
Yeah, right. I hate this movie that I liked so much.
Right. So it's at 73% with critics. Look at the audience.
Doesn't he like dress up as like he himself into an arch liberal? Yeah.
Do you see that?
Right there. Yeah.
All he did was put on a wig. I listened to a podcast that he was on talking about, a couple actually. Okay, by the way, it has a 98% review rate by the audience.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? It means people that seen the movie, 98% thumbs up. 98%.
Oh, sweet. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
But critics, 73%. And I can't believe it's 73% because their careers are on the line there.
That's
true. He was told, his producer said, okay, so the premise is he's going to infiltrate all of these white supremacist groups, like these ladies that have these I'm a racist conventions, and they hire
anti-white supremacist groups is what you meant.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Because I'm talking fast and I screw things up sometimes. You're right. You're right. So it's always these white Karens that are filled with guilt for being a racist.
Yeah.
And they hire two women to tell them, to just badger them about what racists they are, because this is going to make them feel better. And then they go around the room and talk about the latest racist thought or action that they've done. It's completely just through the roof crazy. So he puts on a wig. First of all, his producer said, because he's got to infiltrate this, all these different things like this. It's kind of like Borat style. Yeah. And so his producer's like, you got to shave the beard. I mean, we got to have you in disguise. Your beard is so distinctive. He's like, that's a no-go. So I put on a wig with a man bun on it and all of that.
I mean, it's perfect. He totally like that. He morphs right into that.
But he's also got a very distinctive voice. Merle, the point is, these people are in such a freaking bubble. They don't know who Matt Walsh is. Everybody else in the world does.
I saw one clip where he sits down to interview this woman, and she asks him a couple of qualifying questions first, and she says, "Good. I just want to make sure I understand who I'm talking to," and then she just spills out all this horrible stuff, and it's like, "You're talking about Walsh."
Yes, and that's what he says. He goes, "That's just the game. Is that you got to throw out about 4 phrases that are commonly known that shows that you're in a safe space.
You're one of them, right?"
And then they'll say anything after that.
I love that.
And so it's supposed to be hysterical. Like he'll just kind of look at the camera when things get like so crazy. He introduced at one point whips, and he goes, "You have to flog yourself," something like that, or you're racist. And he goes, "I'm sure that this is when I was going to get kicked out, because surely nobody's going to take a whip." He goes, "People started taking the freaking whips."
Oh my!
Because he was pushing to see how far before he gets kicked out, and then eventually he always gets kicked out. And I can't wait to see it. I haven't seen it yet. I can't wait. And so I was searching for it to see if I could find it online. No, it's in theaters right now.
Yeah, but what a great movie to go and see. You know, I'm constantly thinking, man, I miss going to the movies, but I never know what's playing at the movies anymore.
Right.
That's a big deal right there. And then,
and
it used to be there was always some kind of movie you were looking forward to seeing, but I never see the movie previews anymore. So I just have no idea what's out there. So this one looks really great. I really like that.
Where do you want to go from here? We could wind up. We could also talk about, if you want to, just for a minute. Janet Jackson was very adamant about Kamala Harris. All of a sudden, she's black, and Janet Jackson went public and said she is not black. Now, apparently, Kamala Harris was, I think, presiding over the Michael Jackson hearings back then, and so she's on Janet Jackson's.
On her list, yeah,
yeah.
I can see that.
Who came out to defend Janet Jackson? Some celebrity, I forget who, but so she's very insistent. I wanted to ask you this. Okay, since her father is Jamaican, and so Janet Jackson insists that she's Indian. I suppose it's because Kamala Harris said she's just Indian all these years, and now she's going with playing the black card.
Yeah.
Are Jamaicans black or are they not?
You see, this is such a gray area right here. It's kind of funny that we're talking about this. Okay, what is black and what is African American? That's a good one. if I see a person in Africa, do I just call them African? Because they're black, but they're not in America, so I just call them
how about
African.
the white?
There's white people in Africa.
Yeah,
Are they? How do we? This is so confusing, right? But here's what I believe Janet Jackson is talking about. It's not. She's not talking about the color of skin. She's talking about an American experience here, and the American experience with. And I'm just going to use black because that's how I don't call myself African American.
Sure.
I think black now is supposed to be taboo, but I don't have anything to do with Africa. I mean, supposedly my blood came from over there. I can't trace it back to there. I don't know anybody over there. And by the way, it was the African warlords that sold their own people into slavery. And so why should I have any allegiance to the people that sold me like a slave?
You're over here because of them.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, I've had there's a lot of animosity between Africans and black people. Like the Africans see black people as mongrels because we're mixed with the white race. Okay, so
wait a minute. I'm also going to say that the Nigerians that come over here legally, just like Indians come here from India legally on visas and participate in our universities and then our workforce, those Nigerians excel just like the Indians do.
They absolutely do. They're very committed to their studies. That is a big part of their culture. But I've met a lot of Nigerians that they don't totally disrespect black people here in America. One thing they say is that they're lazy. I've actually had a Nigerian tell me that. Well, so anyway, let me go back to the question of is Kamala black or what the deal is. What Janet Jackson is referring to here is that she doesn't have her family history based in slavery here in America. That's plain and simple. That's where that's coming from. Okay. Here in America, we have a black culture that stems out of slavery. And through slavery, we are mixed into the white race through the slave master. And all of us have that in common. Somebody with a Jamaican father and an Indian mother does not have that in common with the general public of black here in America. And that's what she's talking about. So we have a history of overcoming that whole situation where Kamala's family doesn't have that history. Neither does Barack Obama.
There you go. Well said. I'm going to leave it to you. What do you want to wind up right now? Do you have something else that you want to share?
Well, let's go ahead and wind it up. I did see a couple of movies here that I thought were really good, and I know you can bring this up if you have fire or you've got what's the other one called, but I'm always looking for a nice movie out there that makes me feel good. And I watched this one called City Island. It was made in 2009, so you're gonna have to look for this one. But it's a comedy drama, and it's got Andy Garcia in it as the star, and he's living on City Island in the Bronx. His name is Vince Rizzo, and he's a prison guard, and he's a father of a dysfunctional family whose members all have secrets. And Vince discovers that his secret illegitimate son is now a 24-year-old prison inmate in the very prison where he works. And without revealing this truth to his family, Vince consequently gets Tony out of prison and employs him and even has him move into the house. And all kinds of crazy things happen. But this whole movie is rooted in the agape love thing, and forgiveness is in the center of it, and it's guaranteed to make you cry for joy at the end. It's called City Island, and it's great acting. And I think that if you love love, you'll love that. And speaking of that, there's another one out there too that again.
Did you tell us where we can find City Island?
See, that's the thing. I got it on Fire TV, and it doesn't say here exactly where you get it. So you're just going to have to look that one up. But it's called City Island. City Island is actually an island in the in New York City. It's in the river, the Hudson River, and it's right by a bridge. Yeah, it's a really cool thing. Check it out. And they've got their own culture and everything in this island that's in between New York and like the Bronx. Anyhow, then the other one is called Humor Me. It's a 2017 American comedy film. This one is it's got Jermaine Clement in it, and I really love him. He was in Flight of the Conchords. It's just a silly, zany guy from New Zealand. There's a lot of good comics from New Zealand out there, but this one is Nate Kroll is a playwright who suddenly loses his job, his wife, and home with no other options. He moves in with his eccentric father, who is Elliot Gould. And he lives in a retired people's community, kind of like the community you were talking about earlier today, and where everybody takes care of each other. It's a lot like that. And it's freaking hilarious what happens. Jermaine and Elliot Gould are really funny. And again, this one, it's got a lot of family conflict, but in the end, it's all based on this whole love thing. It's really funny. Both movies are really funny, but it's guaranteed to make you cry for joy at the end of this one.
That sounds very refreshing. I'm going to say, ask again. Do you know where we can find it, or say?
Yeah, both of them. I did not get these, but you can look them up. Just go on to your thing and put in Humor Me or City Island, and they'll come up. If you don't have, you'll probably have to rent it if it's not coming up free on something, but totally worth it. These are weekend friendly movies. I think both of them you could watch with your mature kids, not little kid movies.
That's good to know.
Teenage kid movies.
Good. I like that. I like your movie reviews. With that, we're going to wind up. Got to get going. Lots to do. Stay tuned for Mark's AI tip coming up right now.
Hey there, friends. Welcome. Over 50 starting over. This is Mark Tennant with your AI tip of the week. Well, everybody uses Google every day, probably. Well, I'm going to tell you in the next 2 or 3 minutes why Perplexity.ai will be your new Google. Perplexity AI is an AI-powered search engine, and like Google, it's much, much more powerful. You might be able to say Google on steroids, if you will. And no ads. Well, not yet anyway. So this is Perplexity. This is the UI. As you can see, very easy to use, fairly simple. You just type in what your question is, and Perplexity, just like that, will give you an answer, but with the help of AI. So why Perplexity over Google? Well, first of all, it's a really easy to use interface. As you can see, learning made simple. It summarizes complex topics into easy to understand answers. More conversational, you can talk to it. You can even have a conversation with it. I do this all of the time, especially when maybe I'm not sure what the question is and I kind of refine my question based on the answers that Perplexity gives me. Again, very conversational, very friendly. It gives you straightforward answers, clear and direct responses. And even if you don't understand something, you could say, hey, explain it to me like at a 7th grade level or something like that. It'll do that for you. You can fact check. All sources are cited with the URLs. We'll show you that here in just a little bit. Privacy friendly. There is no tracking like Google for future ads that will pop up when you're on the internet. And in short, it really is learning made simple. So let's compare the two, Perplexity and Google. So here's Google. So we typed in, what are some of the best tips for gardening or maintaining a healthy garden, I should say. And this is the standard answer that Google gives you. You can see what it normally gives you. I'm surprised there's no ads right here. But when you ask that same question to Perplexity, look at this. You've got all kinds of citations. You've got where it got the information from, healthy soil, watering techniques. You can even refer to some videos over here. Plant care, pest management, environmental awareness. a much more complete answer to a very simple question, and you only have to go one place. You don't have to bounce around from website to website to find the answer you're looking for. And when you hover over one of these little tips, one of these numbers, it will pop up exactly where it cited that particular answer from. Pretty cool, so you can fact check while you work. So the next time you go to search on a subject or on any topic, not Google, how about Perplexity? Next time, just Plex it. Instead of perplexity.ai, you can now type in Plex it, and you'll get there. So until next time, keep prompting, keep learning, keep going, keep using AI. And if you want to get a hold of me, mark@marktennant.net. That's my email, and my website, marktennant.net, and download our free guide and get on our mailing list. And until next week, and until next time, have a great one and take care.